Hello, my good friend. When two things are happening together, like this and like that, or like this and like that, we call it something that's happening or existing in parallel. Well, you see it, two things, two hands in parallel, whether it goes in this direction, that direction, you see it, right? But in case you are in between the hands, or when you are sitting in one of the hands, then you will feel that hand very obviously, and you will ignore what the other hand is doing. Say, for example, when you're sitting on this hand, moving like this, and you won't see the other hand is moving like this, or moving above you. Or when you go here and the other hand drops down and take you up and throw you away, then you're drop dead, right? Don't be afraid, right? It's just a drama. What's happening now? My friends, I would call you friends because I just don't know how to address you, right? Two things. One is a pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19, Wuhan flu, Wuhan pneumonia, wars, whatever it is. On the other hand, you see drop in the Dow Jones index, quite a dramatic drop. A lot of bad debts here and there. The banks are not able to issue interest to the shareholders. A lot of shops are closing, not really because of the coronavirus, because they are heavily in debt. And the coronavirus is just something that happens on the same way, like a parallel route, two trains traveling or two cars traveling on a parallel route on a highway. So we can experiment that, we can explain that. So when the coronavirus happened in Wuhan, in Hubei province, in the People's Republic of China, people, are quite carefree of that. And we all consolate ourselves in the West, saying that it's just a common flu, looking at the figures. Right? In China, South Korea, Italy, it's something just like a common flu, and death rate is the same, or more or less the same. And those people who unfortunately die are people around 80 years old. Well, everybody stays calm. But suddenly the whole world, US, UK, Germany, France, these countries used to be quite calm, quite stable, but suddenly they all go crazy and say, something is quite dangerous. We've got to lock down here and there. You got to stay home. Don't run in the street. Even places, peaceful places like India, begins to have travel bans and homebound orders. What happens actually? Why is there a sudden drastic turn of the attitude of the government? Is there anything new discovered? No. The medical professionals say that there is nothing newly discovered. What is new is that politicians, bankers find a good chance, a good excuse to spin a world recession as a pandemic. In other words, the pandemic, whether it's true or fake, is a camouflage to wrap up the world recession, which is really exploding, which is long waited for 20 years to come, eased by quantitative easing by the Federal Reserve in the USA, right? So what's happening now is that governments, bankers, big corporates, world conglomerates grasp this chance to start up a world recession. And the coronavirus is something used to lock people up, to calm people down, and to allow government to issue very draconic decrees, orders, saying that you have to stay home, you cannot gather in the street, you cannot cry out in case you lose your job, right? In future, this kind of decrees, this kind of crazy laws and crazy orders will stay for a few months until the bubble breaks and people lose their job. And for that time, they stayed at home. They got some compensation, some money, some care packets delivered to them by the government. And when the time came, the company become bankrupt. They are being laid off. There is a time gap after this pandemic. And when this time gap passes, then everybody knows the truth that it is actually a world recession being camouflaged, being pretended as a pandemic. And we explain it quite clearly when I started this video, saying that two elements are playing in parallel, or this way, this way, this way. Well, I'm not playing Tai Chi anyway, right? But this is a real thing that happens. And when you are sitting here or sitting there, when you are just a common worker, you sit on the pandemic, then you are very afraid, and you will be grabbed by the bankers, thrown down. If you work for the bank, if you are very rich businessman, somebody who knows, somebody who play around, and you sit on the banker's hand here, then you grab people and throw them down, then you will be happy. So it depends. It depends whether you can stay a bit behind the phenomena, and then it's not really very tough philosophy. Just stay behind a bit, observe, and think about it. Then you know what is really happening, and you know how to respond.